At the gala I funded, my husband entered with his ex on his arm. Vivian Shaw wore silver. Grant wore the tuxedo I had picked up from the tailor that morning because he'd been buried at work. They paused beneath the glass chandelier while the photographer turned toward them, and Lorraine swept forward as if she'd been waiting to complete the picture. "Look at you two," my mother-in-law said. A donor near the registration table raised his eyebrows. "Grant, I thought Mara was your date." Grant glanced across the foyer at me, then he laughed. "Vivian's the woman who belongs beside me tonight," he said. "She knows how to work a room. Mara's the reason there's a room to work." I stayed silent as Darius Cole, the venue manager, crossed the foyer carrying a black folder. He stopped in front of me while my husband was still laughing. He held the contract. "Mrs. Ellison," he said quietly, "I need the account holder's authorization before we proceed with the additions." Across the marble floor, Grant watched us. The part I couldn't understand was why he looked relieved. "What additions?" I asked. Darius angled the folder so the open pages faced only me. He was a tall, careful man who could tell a florist that her delivery truck was blocking a fire lane and somehow make it sound like an invitation to improve the evening. In 4 months of planning, I had never seen him look uncomfortable. The reserve champagne, the donor supper in the Hawthorne room, and tomorrow morning's reception. The request came through at 3:17. At 3:17, I was upstairs approving the lighting. Yes. His finger rested beside a typed amendment. Under requested by, someone had entered Grant Ellison. Under event host, someone had entered Vivian Shaw. My name remained at the top beside the billing address for my consulting firm. I looked past him. Lorraine had one hand through Vivian's arm and was introducing her to Arthur Bell, the foundation's largest donor. Grant stood close enough to Vivian that the sleeve of his tuxedo brushed her bare shoulder. He had stopped looking at me. "How much?" $42,600 before service fees. I almost smiled, not because it was funny, but because $42,000 was such an ambitious amount to spend at 3:17 in the afternoon. "What have you already opened?" 6 cases of the reserve champagne. We can return 4. The kitchen has prepped for the supper, but most of that can be redirected to staff meals and tomorrow's restaurant service. The reception hasn't been touched. "And you came to me before charging it. You signed the contract." There was something in the way he said it. Not sympathy. Darius was too professional for that. It was closer to a warning between people who understood invoices. I took the pen clipped inside the folder. "Keep the 2 cases. Cancel the private supper and the reception. No further additions unless I approve them in writing." His shoulders lowered by 1/2 inch. "I'll note that. Also remove Grant as an authorized contact." Darius looked at me then. "He isn't one." I stared at the amendment. "He said you'd confirm once you were calm," Darius added. The pen made a small blue dot where I had pressed it into the paper. "Did he?" I told him we needed your signature. Behind us, a burst of laughter rose from the registration table. Vivian had always been good at making a group feel as though something clever had just happened. Even when she said something ordinary, people leaned closer, afraid they had missed the sparkling edge of it. I signed beside the cancellations. Darius closed the folder. "I'll take care of it." "Thank you. You may want to keep this." He slid a copy of the amendment from beneath the original and handed it to me. "For your records." The first server reached the foyer with a tray of reserve champagne just as Darius walked away. Lorraine plucked 2 glasses from it and handed one to Vivian. "There she is," Lorraine called to me, "our miracle worker." Her smile was flawless. Lorraine could turn an insult into a compliment simply by widening her eyes. I folded the amendment once and slipped it into my evening bag. "I thought the miracle worker was supposed to get the night off," I said. Lorraine kissed the air beside my cheek. Her perfume smelled like gardenias and old furniture polish. "You always say you hate circulating." I say I hate being told to circulate. She gave a patient little laugh, the one she used when I was being too literal for polite company. Vivian offered to help. Grant thought it was a wonderful idea. Grant touched my elbow. "Can we not do this here?" I looked at his hand until he removed it. Vivian lifted her glass. "Mara, the ballroom looks beautiful." Truly, the green glass votives were inspired. They were the least expensive option in the venue catalog. "Thank you," I said. Her eyes searched my face. She had expected anger or tears, or at least a question she could answer graciously. What she found seemed to unsettle her. Grant stepped between us without appearing to. "Viv has relationships with several donors we've been trying to reach. Tonight matters." "I know. I paid for it." His jaw tightened. Lorraine leaned toward me. "Lower your voice." I had not raised it. Arthur Bell approached with a champagne flute in one hand and his hearing aid whistling faintly. "Mara, my dear, Grant says you're hiding from us." "I'm standing in the middle of the foyer, Arthur. That does make for a poor hiding place." I liked Arthur. He had donated enough money to be rude and generally chose to be funny instead. He turned to Vivian. "And you're back." "For one night," she said. Lorraine squeezed her arm. "We'll see." Grant looked down at his shoes. That was the moment the humiliation changed shape. Vivian's dress, Lorraine's satisfaction, even Grant's stupid line about the woman who belonged beside him, all of that could have been one cruel surprise assembled for a room full of donors. But "we'll see" had history inside it. 6 weeks earlier, Lorraine had asked whether I would mind if the foundation hired a fundraising consultant. Donations had been falling for 3 years. Its summer arts grants had been reduced twice, and the anniversary gala was supposed to reassure everyone that the Ellison name still meant something. I had suggested 3 firms. Lorraine dismissed the first as too corporate, the second as too young, and the third because its director had worn sneakers to a luncheon. Grant told me to let his mother handle the people side while I handled the numbers. No one mentioned Vivian. Now she stood in the foyer with a foundation badge pinned to her silver dress. It read, COHOST. "Excuse me," a server said to Lorraine. "Miss Ellison, the Hawthorne room has been released." Lorraine blinked. "Released to whom?" "For regular service. The private supper was canceled." Grant's eyes snapped to mine. "The supper was essential," Lorraine said. "It was requested after the deadline," I told her. "That's why Darius came to you?" "Yes." Grant gave Arthur a strained smile. "Tiny logistics issue." Arthur sipped his champagne. "Those are the expensive kind." Lorraine drew me toward the nearest marble column, gripping my forearm with surprising strength. "I promised the Calder Group a private conversation after dinner." "You ordered a $42,000 expansion without asking me." I asked Grant. "Grant didn't sign the contract. He is your husband. Then you can ask him to pay for it." Her expression changed. It was subtle, more calculation than shock. Lorraine knew exactly what Grant could afford. "Mara," she said, softening, "this evening is for the foundation. It isn't the place to make a point about whose name appears on a piece of paper. My name appears beside the amount due. You've always been generous." "Yes." The word landed between us harder than I intended. Lorraine released my arm. Behind her, Grant was telling Arthur about the foundation's new direction, while Vivian supplied names and dates with polished ease. They looked practiced. Grant touched the small of her back as a couple passed behind them, guiding her closer. He used to touch me that way in grocery store aisles. I turned toward the ballroom before anyone could study my face. The tables glowed under hundreds of green votives. Place cards, auction catalogs, folded napkins, wine glasses. Everything was exactly where I had arranged it. I knew which table had a wobble hidden beneath its linen, and which centerpiece had been rebuilt after the florist dropped it in the service elevator. I knew the vegetarian count, the microphone schedule, and the spelling of every donor's name. At the head table, my place card was gone. Vivian sat beside Grant's. Mine had been moved to table 14 between the venue's insurance broker and a sculptor who had once trapped me in a 40-minute conversation about municipal concrete. I picked up Vivian's card. "Mara." Grant had followed me into the ballroom. I held the card by one corner. "When did you plan this?" "Plan what?" "Careful. If you make me list it, you might hear how it sounds. He glanced toward the foyer. Vivian understands these donors. Mom called her 2 weeks ago, and she agreed to help. I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Territorial. I looked around the ballroom I had spent 4 months building. That's an interesting word. You know what I mean. I don't. Explain it. He lowered his voice. You act like writing checks gives you control over everyone. I wrote checks because your mother said the foundation couldn't make payroll and still hold the gala. And I appreciate that. You arrived with your ex on your arm. She came straight from the hotel. We shared a car. You left our house in my car. His mouth opened, then closed. It was a tiny thing, my car, ridiculously tiny beside Vivian in silver and my place card in my hand. But Grant hated rideshare apps, and Vivian's hotel was across town. If they had arrived together, someone had planned a route. Where were you before the hotel? I asked. At Mom's. Your cufflinks were at home. I had another pair. No, you didn't. His face hardened. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. Every detail becomes an interrogation. Did Vivian come to our house? We're at the foundation's biggest event in 10 years, and you want to fight about cufflinks? The band began its sound check. A low note rolled through the floor under my shoes. Grant took the place card from my hand and set it back beside his. Please, he said, just let tonight work. There was real exhaustion in his face. For one disorienting second, I saw the man who fell asleep with spreadsheets on his chest, who brought me coffee badly made and exactly on time, who knew I hated wet bath mats and always hung his up. Then he looked toward the foyer, checking for his mother. What did you promise them? I asked. Nothing. Grant, Vivian can bring in donors. Mom thinks if tonight goes well, the board will finally vote on the chairmanship. For you, for us. There it was. The future he had discussed with Lorraine and Vivian, waiting for me to fund it before I was allowed to understand it. A server appeared beside us. Mr. Ellison, your mother is asking about the champagne. She says there should be reserve bottles at every table. There should, Grant said. There are enough for the head table and the Calder table. Mrs. Ellison authorized 2 cases. He looked at me. I smiled at the server. That's correct. Grant waited until she walked away. Are you trying to punish my mother? No, I'm declining to buy her $42,000 worth of things she hid from me. She didn't hide anything. Then why did she order them at 3:17? The ballroom doors opened. Guests began moving toward us in a glittering, murmuring tide. Grant straightened his jacket. We'll talk at home. He went to meet Vivian at the head table. I carried my place card to table 14 and sat beside the insurance broker. The gala raised less than Lorraine announced from the stage, and more than I feared. Vivian secured 2 meetings. Grant gave a speech about legacy, standing between his mother and the woman who belonged beside him. From table 14, I watched him thank everyone except me. At 11:30, Darius found me near the service corridor and handed me a long white envelope. Final preliminary invoice, he said, and copies of the messages regarding the amendment. I slipped it into my bag. Did the evening meet your expectations? He asked. Not remotely. His mouth twitched. The event itself ran very well. That sounds like something you say after a kitchen fire. Only a small kitchen fire. I laughed, and it hurt more than crying would have. Grant barely spoke in the car. At home, he went upstairs while I stood in the entryway removing my earrings. The green glass dish sat on the narrow walnut table by the door, filled with the ordinary metal clutter of our life. My office key, Grant's spare car fob, Lorraine's emergency key on its red leather ring, and a white hotel card smeared with coral lipstick. Beneath it lay a newly cut brass key to our front door. I picked up the brass key. The edges were sharp from the cutter. It had no ring, no label, nothing to say whom it belonged to, but the teeth matched mine. Grant came down the stairs without his jacket or tie. He had changed into gray sweatpants and an old university t-shirt, as though the evening had ended normally and we were simply two tired people arriving at midnight. "Have you seen my car fob?" I held up the brass key. He stopped 3 steps from the bottom. "Whose is this?" "I don't know." "Try again." He came the rest of the way down, saw the hotel card, and rubbed a hand over his face. "Vivian must have dropped those." "In our house." "Yes." The word was so easy that I wondered if I had heard it correctly. "When?" "This afternoon. You said you were at your mother's." "I was. Then we came here because I needed my cufflinks." "The cufflinks you told me you didn't wear." "Mara. Did she use that key to get in?" "No. Mom let her in earlier." I looked at Lorraine's red leather key ring in the dish. "Your mother let Vivian into our house when neither of us was here?" "They had foundation work to do. Mom's internet went out." "Lorraine's internet goes out every time she doesn't remember her password." "They needed a quiet place. There's an office at the foundation. The air conditioning is broken. There's a conference room in your building." It was Saturday. Each answer arrived polished enough to suggest he had already used it on himself. I placed the key on the walnut table. "How long has Vivian had a copy?" "She doesn't." "Grant." "She had one made today because Mom had to leave for her hair appointment. It was practical." "Practical." "She was bringing donor packets back here after the gala. Obviously, that's not happening now." "Because she dropped the key?" "Because you canceled the supper." He bent toward the dish and reached for his car fob. I put my palm over it. His hand froze. "Did you know your mother gave her our key?" "I knew they were working here." "That isn't what I asked." "Yes, I knew." The house seemed to settle around us. The refrigerator clicked off. Somewhere upstairs, the heating vent made the little metallic pop that had bothered me for 7 winters. "You knew," I said, "and you didn't ask me." "You were already stressed." "I was stressed because I was doing 4 months of unpaid work for your family, and everything became a discussion. The florist, the menu, who got invited, where Mom could store the auction pieces. Those are all things you discuss when someone else is paying." He pulled his hand back from the car fob. "It's my house, too." "That's true. Did Vivian think it was hers?" "Oh, for God's sake." "She walked through the door using a key your mother gave her. She opened our closets. She stood in our bedroom while you changed." "I changed in the bathroom." The correction was so pure, so absurdly Grant, that I laughed once. He stared at me. "Nothing happened." "Something happened." "I did not sleep with Vivian." "I didn't ask whether you did." "Then what do you want from me?" "I want to know why 3 people discussed access to my home, decided I would object, and treated that objection as a problem to get around." "She was here for work." "It isn't work to arrive at my event on my husband's arm." "Mom thought it would photograph well. And you?" "I thought it would keep Mom focused and help the foundation." "So you agreed." He looked away. I had spent years translating Grant's silence into kinder sentences. He's tired. He doesn't want to take sides. He'll speak to her later. He knows she's difficult. Tonight, there was no sentence left that did not end with the same fact. "You let your mother put Vivian in my seat," I said. "It was a chair." "You let her into my house. Our house. You called her the woman who belonged beside you. It was a joke. Who was supposed to laugh?" He sank onto the bottom stair and pressed his hands together. "I was trying to make Arthur comfortable. He's known Vivian forever. You know how he is about continuity." "Arthur asked why your wife wasn't your date." "It came out wrong." "It came out clearly." "I'm sorry for the wording." The wording. As if my marriage had been injured by copy editing. I picked up the hotel card and the brass key and put both inside the white envelope Darius had given me. "Where are you going?" "To sleep." "Can we finish this?" I think we did. I took the envelope, my office key, and Lorraine's red-ringed key upstairs. Grant's spare car fob remained alone in the green dish. He slept in our bed. I slept in the room we called the den, because calling it a guest room had always felt unfriendly. At 2 in the morning, I opened Darius's envelope on the fold-out sofa. There were 9 pages of messages. At 1:08 p.m., Grant had asked Darius to change the head table cards. At 1:41, Lorraine had added the Hawthorne Room supper. At 2:16, Vivian had sent a revised schedule listing herself as co-host. At 3:17, Grant had approved all additional charges on behalf of my wife. Darius had replied that only I could approve them. Grant's answer appeared beneath it. She will confirm once she is calm. Please don't disrupt the evening over a technicality. I photographed every page. At 3, I opened the foundation accounts on my laptop. The Gala deposit had come from my firm's operating account. So had the florist's second payment and the printer's rush fee. The foundation owed me $68,412. There was no signed reimbursement schedule because Lorraine had said paperwork between family looked cold. I closed the laptop and lay in the dark until morning. At 7, I called a locksmith. Grant appeared in the kitchen as I was giving the address. "You're changing the locks?" "I'm changing the locks Lorraine has keys to. You'll get a new key." "You can't lock my mother out without talking to me." "I'm talking to you." "She has an emergency key." It became a networking key. He opened the refrigerator, stared into it, and shut it again. On Sundays, I usually made eggs and toasted the rye bread he liked. The empty counter seemed to offend him personally. What am I supposed to tell her? That the locks changed. She'll ask why. You know why. You're blowing this up. The locksmith knocked at 8:15. Grant went upstairs before I opened the door. By 9, the front lock and side door cylinder had been rekeyed. I put Grant's new key in the green dish. I kept mine on my office ring. The locksmith handed me 4 extras in a small paper sleeve. "How many people have keys?" he asked. "Fewer than yesterday." He nodded as if that was the usual reason people called him on Sunday mornings. At 11, Lorraine texted to ask what time she should come for dinner. Sunday dinner had begun casually after she sold her house and moved into a condo 6 blocks away. At first it was twice a month, then weekly. Then she started arriving at 4 to help, which meant moving serving dishes and telling me I used too much garlic. Grant liked the routine. I shopped, cooked, and cleaned, while he and Lorraine drank wine at the kitchen island and discussed people I barely knew. "Dinner is canceled," I wrote. 3 dots appeared immediately. "Are you ill?" "No." "Then why?" I looked at the chicken thawing in the refrigerator. I had bought it Friday before my husband brought another woman to the gala I funded. "I'm not hosting tonight." The phone rang. I let it ring while I wrapped the chicken and put it in the freezer. Grant came down holding his own phone. "Mom says you canceled dinner." "That's correct." "She bought wine." "Tell her to drink it." "You're punishing her." "I don't want her in the house." "It's Sunday." "That's not a legal obligation." He stared at the clean, empty kitchen. "What are we eating?" "I don't know what you're eating." He gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "This is mature. Your mother gave your ex-fiancée a key to my front door, and you're asking what's for dinner." "Our front door," he said automatically. I turned to him. "You keep correcting the pronoun while missing the point." He left for Lorraine's at noon. At 12:20, he texted that I was welcome to join them. I made a grilled cheese sandwich and ate it standing over the sink. On Monday morning, I went to the foundation office before work. The air conditioning was running so cold that Lorraine's longtime administrator, Elaine Porter, wore a cardigan at her desk. "You're early," she said. Then she saw the white envelope under my arm. "Oh. Is Lorraine here?" "She's expected at 10. I need the current accounts payable report, the vendor agreements, and a copy of the bylaws." Elaine took off her glasses. "Should I ask why?" "I'm resigning as volunteer treasurer." Her eyes closed briefly. "Did you know about Vivian?" I asked. I knew Lorraine had contacted her. "Did you know she was co-hosting?" "Not until Friday." Friday, 2 days before I was supposed to find out by looking across a foyer. Elaine turned toward her computer. "The accounts payable report is ugly." "How ugly?" "We have $11,000 in unrestricted cash. Payroll is due Thursday. The Gala balance is due in 10 days. Lorraine has been counting your advance as a contribution. It was an advance. I know. Does the board? Elaine hesitated. That answered me. I sat in the chair beside her desk. Print everything. The printer worked for several minutes. Elaine stacked the pages without speaking, tapping each set against the desk to square the edges. You should know, she said. Lorraine promised the Calder Group a spring program we can't fund. How much? $85,000. Based on what? Vivian told her she could bring in corporate underwriting. Can she? Maybe. Elaine's maybe contained 10 years of other promises. I signed a short resignation letter and dated it. Then I wrote a second letter stating that my firm would honor only the vendor expenses I had approved before the gala. Payments would go directly to those vendors after verification. No cash would pass through the foundation. Elaine read it twice. Lorraine is going to say you're trying to destroy her. I'm paying her bills. You're paying your bills. She thinks they're the same thing. The outer door opened at 9:43. Lorraine entered wearing cream trousers and carrying the leather portfolio I had given her for her last birthday. Vivian followed with 2 coffees and a cardboard box of pastries. Vivian stopped when she saw me. Lorraine did not. Good. We need to talk about your behavior. I handed her my resignation letter. She read the first line, then sat down. You cannot resign now. I just did. The board meeting is Thursday. Elaine can prepare the reports. I'll answer written questions about the period I handled. Lorraine looked at Elaine as if expecting her to object. Elaine adjusted the stack of vendor agreements. I can prepare the reports. You knew about this? I found out 30 seconds ago. Vivian put the coffees on the desk. Maybe everyone should take a breath. That phrase isn't having a good week, I said. She flushed. Lorraine lowered her voice. Mara, whatever happened between you and Grant, do not drag the foundation into your marriage. The foundation came into my marriage carrying a $42,000 amendment. That was a misunderstanding. It listed Vivian as host. Vivian folded her arms. I didn't ask to replace you. You saw the place card. Lorraine said you preferred not to sit up front. And did that sound true? Her gaze shifted to the resignation letter in Lorraine's hand. At the time, yes. It was almost an honest answer. Lorraine stood. You made a commitment. So did Grant. This institution existed before you. It can continue without me. Can it? She asked. The cruelty was quiet because the fear beneath it was real. Lorraine had spent years introducing herself as the foundation's president. Its office, its annual programs, its embossed invitations, those were the architecture of her days. I had mistaken her dependence on them for devotion to the work. You have $11,000 in unrestricted cash, I said. Payroll is Thursday. I suggest you stop ordering pastries. Elaine made a small sound that might have been a cough. Lorraine's face went still. Vivian looked at Elaine. Is that accurate? Yes. Why wasn't I told? You were hired Friday, Elaine said. I've been consulting for 2 weeks. The room changed. Lorraine closed her eyes. I looked at Vivian. Were you paid? She did not answer. From which account? I asked. Lorraine set my resignation letter on the desk. That is no longer your concern. You're right. I gathered the vendor agreements and slid them into the white envelope with the copied key and the messages. That afternoon, I called every vendor whose invoice carried my signature. Most were relieved to hear from me. The florist agreed to correct an inflated delivery charge. The printer waived a late fee after I promised payment by Friday. Darius sent a revised final invoice that removed every canceled edition. At 6, Grant called my office. Mom says you resigned. Yes. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. Do you? A pause. I think you're angry. Very. You can't make financial decisions when you're angry. I made all the financial decisions when I was happy. That's how we got here. Mara, the foundation can't cover the Gala balance. I can. I'm paying the obligations I signed for. And after that? After that, it lives on its income. He breathed out slowly. We need to talk about our accounts. What about them? I moved the household reserve. I sat forward. Moved it where? To the joint credit line. Temporarily. The household reserve held 6 months of mortgage payments, utilities, insurance, and repairs. I contributed 70% of it. You transferred our cash into debt? I reduced the balance before interest recalculated. Why? Because the foundation needs liquidity, and Vivian has a recovery plan. I gripped the phone. How much did you give them? I haven't given them anything yet. Then move it back. I think we should discuss it first. Move it back, Grant. You don't get to control every dollar because you earn more. The call ended before I realized he had hung up. I opened our banking app. The household reserve showed 0. The credit line showed a positive available balance I could see but could not access without Grant's approval. Under account permissions, my status had changed that morning. View only. I refreshed the page twice. The words stayed put. I called the bank's after-hours number and spent 20 minutes proving my identity to a woman who sounded as tired as I felt. She confirmed that the reserve had been applied to the balance on our joint line of credit. Grant was the primary borrower because we had opened it years earlier through his bank, and the online portal gave him administrative control. Can he draw the money back out? I asked. Yes, subject to the account limit. Can I stop him? You can submit a dispute or request a restriction, but we would need to review the account documents. That may take several business days. Can you note that I do not consent to any new draw? I can note it. A note. Grant had taken 6 months of safety and turned it into available debt, and I had a note. I drove home with both hands tight on the steering wheel. He was in the kitchen eating leftover pastries from the foundation office. The box sat open beside him, its white cardboard stained with butter. You changed my access. I changed the account settings. You can still see everything. That's generous. I knew you'd try to lock it. It's our emergency fund, and the foundation is having an emergency. The foundation has $11,000 because your mother spends donations before they arrive. That's why Vivian is there. Vivian has been there for 2 weeks, and Elaine didn't know she was being paid. She's not being paid yet. Then where is her fee recorded? He pushed the pastry box away. Did you go through the accounts with Elaine? I was the treasurer. You resigned. After I looked. He stood and carried his plate to the sink. He rinsed it, which somehow made me angrier. Grant was never careless in the small ways. He wiped crumbs from counters. He replaced empty toilet paper rolls. He remembered the recycling schedule. You could build a whole defense of him out of details that did not matter when the door was locked. If I hadn't moved the reserve, he said, you would have transferred it into an account I couldn't touch. I contributed most of it. It's marital money. So is the debt you're preparing to create. I haven't drawn anything, then agree not to. He turned off the faucet. Vivian's plan could stabilize the foundation in 90 days. Show me the plan. You'll attack it because it came from her. Show me anyway. He went upstairs and returned with his laptop. We sat at opposite ends of the dining table while he opened a presentation with the foundation crest in the corner. Vivian's plan was good. That was the irritating part. She proposed cutting 2 ceremonial programs that cost more than they raised, approaching local firms for 3-year underwriting commitments, and converting Lorraine's expensive annual luncheon into smaller donor events. She had identified exactly which board members were decorative and which could open doors. Her projections were optimistic but not absurd. On page 17, under Reputation Management, she recommended an orderly separation from financially entangled volunteers whose personal expectations may compromise institutional independence. I read it twice. I'm the financially entangled volunteer. It doesn't name you. It quotes my resignation. Vivian thinks the foundation has to stand on its own. You said the same thing. She called me unstable in bullet points. She called the arrangement unstable, personal expectations, Grant shut the laptop halfway. You canceled donor commitments in the middle of the gala. I declined to purchase them. You moved your seat. Your mother moved my seat. I accepted her decision. See? That. You say things like that and act as if they aren't designed to cut. I leaned back. Do you know what's strange? The plan says the foundation needs to separate from me, but the first page lists the gala I funded as evidence of institutional strength. He opened the laptop again but did not look at it. If the plan is good, I said, use it. Cut the programs. Raise the money. Stop expecting me to absorb the gap. The board won't approve the transition without a cash cushion. Then it isn't independent. He stared at page 17. I'm not authorizing a draw, I said. If you take money from that line for the foundation, you're choosing to make me responsible for a debt I refuse to fund. I hear you. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have tonight. He carried the laptop upstairs. I opened a new checking account before bed and redirected my consulting deposits. I moved the mortgage, utilities, and insurance to automatic payments from it because missed bills would hurt me too. That left groceries, meals, household supplies, and every favor that had never appeared on a statement. I stopped managing those. Grant could grocery shop. He could schedule his own dry cleaning and remember his mother's pharmacy pickup. He could respond when Lorraine called at 9:30 because her television had switched inputs. None of those tasks would ruin him. Their weight came from being endless and expected. On Tuesday, Lorraine tried her old key. I was in the front room reviewing a client proposal when metal scraped inside the new lock. The handle rattled twice. Then she rang the bell for nearly 5 seconds. I opened the door but remained in the doorway. You changed the locks? Yes. I have refrigerated food. She held up a glass casserole dish covered in foil. You can take it to Grant's office. Mara, move. No. Her face registered the words slowly. This is my son's house. He can invite you in when he's here. I've had a key for 7 years. You used it to give Vivian access. I allowed a foundation consultant to work in a suitable space. You copied my key. I copied Grant's key. That's an impressive distinction. She shifted the casserole dish against her hip. You enjoyed being needed until people stopped acting grateful enough. The sentence hit close enough to make me step back internally, though my feet stayed planted. Lorraine saw it. You wanted to rescue the gala, she continued. You wanted everyone to know you rescued it. Now you're furious because Vivian understands that world without needing instructions. I'm furious because my husband helped you hide her from me. I told him you would overreact, and he chose your prediction over asking his wife. Grant has spent years managing your sensitivity. I almost answered. Then I saw what she wanted, a scene she could carry to him as proof. I looked at the casserole dish. Do you need help taking that back to your car? The foil crackled beneath her fingers. Grant pulled into the driveway. He got out, saw us, and slowed. Tell her I'm allowed in your house, Lorraine said. Grant looked at me. Can we just go inside? You can, I said. She can't. His tiredness turned instantly into resentment. Mara. Invite her somewhere else. She brought dinner, then eat at her place. Lorraine's mouth trembled, and for a second she looked less like the president of anything than a woman holding a heavy dish outside a locked door. Grant went to her, took the casserole, and kissed her cheek. I'll call you later, Mom. You're permitting this? I said I'll call. She walked to her car without looking at either of us. Grant waited until she had driven away. You humiliated her. At my front door? Our front door. Did you bring home a new key? He had not. I took the casserole from his hands and put it on the entry table beside the green glass dish. Your key has been sitting there since Sunday. He glanced down. I didn't see it. I know. That night, he heated Lorraine's casserole. He set a plate across from him without asking whether I wanted one. It smelled like rosemary and onions. I sat down and ate. Halfway through dinner, he said, Vivian and I aren't having an affair. I believe you. He looked surprised. I think she's in love with the version of you your mother promises her, I said. That may be worse. You don't know her. I know you. He put down his fork. Do you? The question stayed with me because it was not entirely defensive. The board accepted my resignation on Thursday. Arthur Bell called 10 minutes later. I'm told you've walked away at a delicate moment, he said. I resigned as treasurer. Lorraine says you withdrew promised support over a domestic disagreement. I'm paying $68,412 in obligations. Silence. That figure is not what I was given, he said. What were you given? That your firm had pledged ongoing underwriting through next year. My firm pledged the Gala deposit and approved vendors. Ask Lorraine for a signed document showing anything else. He sounded disappointed, though I could not tell in whom. This is becoming ugly. It was ugly in the foyer, now it's accounting. He ended the call politely. By Friday, the florist, printer, caterer, and venue had been paid directly. My firm's operating account looked bruised. I postponed replacing 2 office computers and canceled a professional conference I had planned to attend. Honoring my signatures cost something real. That helped. Revenge felt less intoxicating when it arrived beside a cash flow spreadsheet. Elaine sent me a receipt for every payment and one personal message. Thank you for not leaving us to explain this to the vendors. I printed it and put it with the contract. Grant did not draw from the credit line that week. He also did not return the reserve to savings. We moved around each other with strained courtesy. He bought groceries and came home with 6 kinds of yogurt, no coffee, and an industrial bag of rice. He washed his own shirts and turned 3 white collars faintly blue. On Saturday morning, he made eggs for both of us. They were overcooked and covered in pepper. I can make eggs, he said when he saw me looking at them. I didn't say you couldn't. You were thinking it. I was thinking you've declared war on yolks. He smiled before he could stop himself. For a few minutes, we ate in the kitchen we had renovated together, and the distance between us felt both enormous and ridiculous. I remembered painting the cabinets at midnight, Grant putting a green streak across my nose, both of us too tired to notice we had installed one handle upside down. I'm not trying to replace you, he said. You already did. No, Vivian is helping with the foundation. Mom got carried away at the gala. You agreed to the place card. I know. You approved the charges. I know. You told Darius I'd confirm once I was calm. His face tightened. I shouldn't have said that. Why did you? Because I needed the night to work. And I was the obstacle. You were the person who could say no. There it was again, clearer this time. He reached across the table. His fingers stopped short of mine. I need you to understand what this means to Mom, he said. After my father died, the foundation was the thing she had left. If it fails, she thinks everyone will see that she failed. What do you think? I think she sacrificed a lot for it. So have I. I know. But hers counts differently. He looked at his untouched coffee. I pushed back my chair. I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few nights. His head lifted. You don't have to leave. I don't have to keep sleeping in the den either. The hotel was quiet and impersonal. I worked late, ordered soup, and missed my own towels. Grant texted each night without asking me to return. Lorraine sent nothing. Vivian emailed on Wednesday. The subject line read, clarification. She wrote that she regretted the optics of the gala, but would not apologize for helping an institution she respected. She stated again that nothing romantic had happened between her and Grant. Attached was the foundation's new donor packet. My company logo appeared on the back page beneath lead sponsors. I called Elaine. Please tell me that packet hasn't gone out. A long pause. Vivian presented it to the board yesterday. Did anyone approve the use of my logo? Lorraine said Grant had. Grant cannot authorize my company. I know. What event is this for? The Spring Recommitment Gala. I stood at the hotel window looking down at traffic moving through the rain. Where? The same venue. My other line rang. Darius Cole's name appeared on the screen. I answered Darius first. Please tell me you haven't signed anything." "I haven't," he said. "The foundation submitted a deposit request under your existing customer profile. The materials identify your firm as lead sponsor, so accounting routed it to me. Did they send authorization?" "They sent an email from your husband. He doesn't work for my firm." That was my understanding. I watched a bus stop below the hotel spraying water across the curb. "When is the event?" "Friday." 2 days from now?" "They've had the ballroom on courtesy hold for 3 weeks. I was told final funding was being arranged." Of course it was. The plan had begun before I resigned, before Lorraine came to my locked door, perhaps before Grant entered the first gala with Vivian on his arm. "What has been ordered?" "Dinner for 120, reserve wine, audio-visual service, and the same donor lounge setup you canceled last time. The florist delivered part of the installation this morning." "Who signed those agreements?" "The foundation signed the florist and audio-visual contracts directly. The venue agreement is unsigned. Lorraine says your company guarantee will arrive today." "It won't." I assumed I should confirm. "Thank you." "There is a deadline at noon tomorrow. Without a guarantee or full payment, we release the ballroom." I thought about the florist who had already rebuilt one centerpiece for me and corrected her own invoice when I called. I thought about kitchen staff scheduled for Friday and Darius standing in another foyer with another black folder, while Lorraine treated signatures as decorative. "Send me everything," I said, "and tell accounting and writing that my company has not authorized sponsorship, use of its credit, or use of its name." "I can do that." "Don't cancel the event yet." He paused. "All right. I'm going to give them the deadline. That is more generous than the contract requires. It isn't for them." I called Elaine back. "Can the foundation pay the venue by noon tomorrow?" "Not unless Arthur's pledge arrives." "Is it documented?" "It's conditional." "On what?" "Your company remaining lead sponsor." I closed my eyes. Arthur had not been asking questions during our phone call. He had been deciding whether Lorraine's version of me was safe to finance. "Send him the correct sponsor information," I said. "Lorraine will fire me." "Then ask her to send it." Elaine was quiet. "I'm sorry," I said. "That isn't fair. You don't work for me." "Apparently, I work for whoever is nearest to the printer." Despite myself, I laughed. "I'll handle Arthur." My call went to voicemail. "Arthur, my company did not agree to sponsor Friday's gala. Its name was used without authorization. I'm not asking you to withdraw your support. I'm asking you to decide based on the foundation's actual finances. Call me if you want documents." Then I called Grant. He answered with, "I'm in a meeting." "You listed my company as lead sponsor." Silence replaced the faint office noise behind him. "It's an in-kind sponsorship." "Of what?" "Your planning work, the vendor coordination, the financial systems you built. The work you said the foundation needed to separate from." "I didn't write that language. You showed it to me in your dining room. Our dining room. Even now. Remove my logo from every piece of material. Mara, the packets are printed. Then buy stickers. You're being deliberately humiliating. You used my business to qualify for another gala. Mom needs one successful night to secure the underwriting. She had a successful night. I paid for it. This one demonstrates independence, with my name on the wall." He lowered his voice. "Can you stop reducing everything to ownership?" "No, ownership is the part you keep volunteering. The sponsorship doesn't cost you anything. Then take it off." It gives Arthur confidence. "So it has value." He exhaled hard. "We are married. Your firm supports my work all the time." "My firm has never supported your work. I have." "You want a distinction for everything. I want consent. I need to go." "Did you draw from the credit line?" He did not answer quickly enough. "How much?" $25,000. The rain tapped the hotel window with maddening softness. "I told you I did not consent. You don't have sole veto power over joint finances." "You were right," I said. He seemed unprepared for that. "I don't. You made your choice." "Mara." I ended the call. Vivian called an hour later. I considered letting it ring, then answered. "Arthur's withholding his pledge," she said. "That was his decision. He says he needs revised financials. He should have had them before making a pledge. Do you understand what happens if the venue cancels?" "Yes." Lorraine thinks this is personal. "It is personal. She used my company. Grant said the sponsorship was approved." "By whom?" A pause. "By you." "Did he show you anything with my signature?" "No." "Did he show you anything with his?" "I'm not calling to be cross-examined." "What are you calling for?" Her voice sharpened. "I have spent 3 weeks repairing relationships this family neglected for years. I got the Calder group back to the table. I convinced Arthur there was a responsible transition plan. If Friday collapses, all of that goes with it." "Have you been paid?" "That is between me and the foundation." "That means no. You don't know what it means. I know what your work is worth. So do you." She said nothing. "Ask Lorraine where your fee is recorded," I said. "Then ask Grant whether the credit line draw covers you or the venue." "You think he's using me?" "I think he lets his mother decide whose labor is available." "You're enjoying this." "I'm in a hotel because I can't stand being in my own house." That silenced both of us. When Vivian spoke again, her voice had changed. "I did not ask him to say that thing in the foyer." "But you stood beside him afterward." "Yes." The answer came without decoration. "I wanted it to mean something," she said. "That was my mistake." "No, your mistake was deciding it could only mean something if I became less." She hung up. I checked out the next morning and returned to the townhouse while Grant was at work. His new key was gone from the green dish. In its place lay receipts, 2 loose coins, and a dry cleaning ticket. I packed clothes into suitcases and work papers into banker boxes. I left the furniture where it was. Dividing a sofa felt too intimate for Thursday morning. On the dining table, I put a printed copy of the venue email, the credit line statement, and contact information for a mediator. Grant came home as I zipped the second suitcase. He read the papers standing up. "You called a mediator?" "Yes." "Over $25,000. Over the fact that you heard me say no and decided it meant find another way. The deposit is refundable if the event meets its minimum." That sentence doesn't make sense. "You know what I mean?" "I usually do. That's been part of the problem." He sat down slowly. "If we cancel tomorrow, the foundation may not recover. Then fund it with donations. Arthur is waiting for you to sign off." "I won't." "You could sign a limited sponsorship. No cash. Just the name." "My name is not the consolation prize for losing my money." He covered his face with both hands. "What do you want me to do?" The question sounded different from the one he had asked beside the green glass dish. Then he had wanted instructions for calming me. Now he wanted a door. "Tell the truth," I said. "Tell the board my firm never agreed. Tell them you used joint credit after I objected. Remove my name. Then decide what event the foundation can actually afford." "And us?" "I don't know." It was the most painful answer because it was true. His hands dropped. "I can fix the account. You can return the money. That doesn't make the choice disappear." He looked toward the stairs. "Are you moving out?" "For now." "You paid most of the mortgage." "I know." "You shouldn't have to leave." "That's the first useful thing you've said." He almost smiled. It collapsed before reaching his eyes. Friday afternoon, Darius called again. "They have not met the payment requirement," he said. "Lorraine has requested that we continue setup while she waits for Arthur. Is my logo still displayed?" "Yes." I drove to the venue. The foyer looked smaller in daylight. Staff rolled linen carts across the marble. At the ballroom entrance, a white sponsor wall displayed the foundation crest above my company logo. A photographer was testing lights in front of it. "Take that down," I told Darius. He signaled to 2 staff members. They began unclipping the printed panel. Lorraine came out of the ballroom carrying a seating chart. "You came," she said, relief overtaking her anger. "Good. Arthur's on his way." "I came to remove my company. You cannot do this with guests arriving in 2 hours. You had 3 weeks to ask." I asked your husband. You asked the person most likely to give you what belonged to me. Her chin lifted. Everything is ownership with you now. Only the things you take. Grant emerged behind her. He looked as though he had slept in his shirt. Mara, he said, can we speak privately? Darius held the black folder against his chest. Vivian crossed the foyer from the registration table, wearing a dark blue suit instead of silver. Before anyone speaks privately, I'd like to know whether my invoice is being paid. Lorraine stared at her. This is hardly the moment. It's exactly the moment. Grant says the venue comes first. You say the donor pledge covers both. Arthur says there is no pledge without Mara. Vivian, Grant warned. She pulled the foundation badge from her lapel and handed it to him. I was told I belonged beside you because I understood this world. Apparently understanding it means working for free while your mother spends someone else's money. Lorraine's face flushed. After everything I offered you. You offered me Mara's chair. Vivian set the badge on Darius's folder and walked out through the front doors. Grant watched her leave. I felt no triumph, only recognition. Darius opened the folder. The deadline has passed. We need either full payment of the balance or authorization to release the ballroom. Lorraine looked at Grant. Use the line. The available credit won't cover the balance, he said. You said it would. I said it would cover the deposit. Arthur Bell entered from the street, closing his umbrella. He surveyed the half-removed sponsor wall, Lorraine's seating chart, and the black folder. I assume this is the tiny logistics issue, he said. Lorraine went to him. Arthur, if you release the pledge now, we can proceed. I received the corrected financials from Elaine. Lorraine stopped. I will fund the spring program directly, he said. Invoices to me, reports to me. I will not underwrite this event. The gala is how we launch the program. The program should be how you launch the program. He greeted me with a nod and continued into the restaurant, where Elaine waited with a stack of folders. Darius turned to Grant. Mr. Ellison? Grant stared through the ballroom doors. Tables glittered beneath green glass votives, beautiful and unpaid. Then he looked at me. Please save this. I took the original contract copy from my bag. It was creased now, softened at the fold from being handled. I placed it on the black folder beside Vivian's discarded badge. You called my consent a technicality, I said. You built a second event around getting past it. I was trying to save my family. I was your family. His face changed. Darius waited. Grant picked up the pen and signed the release. The ballroom emptied in pieces. The venue retained enough of the deposit to cover its labor and food preparation. The florist moved her arrangements to 2 weekend events and billed the foundation for transport. Lorraine held a board meeting in the restaurant with coffee, water, and the financials she had avoided. By evening, the foundation had reduced its programs to the one Arthur funded and one it could support from existing donations. Elaine stayed. Lorraine resigned as president 3 months later, but kept a ceremonial board seat. Vivian sent an invoice and, after repeated delays, received payment through a schedule Elaine made Lorraine sign. Grant returned the unused portion of the credit draw and refinanced the remaining balance into his name during our separation. He learned to answer Lorraine's calls without forwarding the problem to me. Sometimes he did it well. Sometimes he still sounded surprised that love could require a boundary. We tried mediation before we admitted we were dividing a life, not repairing one. Grant apologized without editing the sentence. It mattered. It did not restore what his choices had spent. I bought out his share of the townhouse with a conventional mortgage that made me wince every month. We divided dishes, books, towels, and the walnut entry table. He left that because it fit the narrow wall and because, he said, it had always looked more like me. Months after the final box was gone, I came home carrying groceries and unlocked the front door. The green glass dish waited on the table. I dropped my single brass key into it. The clear note rang through the quiet house and faded, leaving the key exactly where I had chosen to put it.